Beaxy Exchange is a safe, easy-to-use, U.S.-compliant exchange.
Because cryptocurrency is such a young industry, there's still a real lack of transparency.
So we are actually using Dragonchain's technology to help solve these transparency issues.
Beaxy partnered with Dragonchain to take advantage of their anti-fraud and transparency systems.
So using Dragonchain's technology, we're actually able to use provably fair tech to verify that our order books and trades and executions are all very transparent to our users. This alone makes Beaxy the only provably fair exchange in the entire world.
I have more than 20 years experience doing large, technically complex projects. One of the things that I was really pleased with in working with Dragonchain is that it allowed us to do the integration with their technology very quickly.
That's what makes Dragonchain and this a perfect partnership.
All right, everyone, welcome to the fourth episode of the World Blockchain Roundtable. Host today are Abbott, President of Beaxy Exchange, James Carney, Director of Marketing at Beaxy Exchange, Greg Lang from the Rivet team, Orrin, creator and entrepreneur, Satoshi Sean, creator and YouTuber, Dave Johnson from Den.Social, and I'm Joe Roets, architect, founder of Dragonchain. So to anybody who doesn't know, it's only the fourth episode. The format, pretty simple, open discussion, anybody on the call, and topics and questions as provided and voted upon by you. So let's get straight to the topics. And what we're going to do is we're going to refresh every time when we start this, so that people can know that these are the questions in the order latest as of the start of the show. So question one, James Rocco, if you can pick only one, what's the biggest obstacle for blockchain right now? Who wants to answer that first?
I think it's education, personally. I think it's just, and I think that's probably the underlying issue or obstacle for anything, right? Anything new, anything emerging and confusing to a lot of people. It's just education. I don't know what the answer is, but that's the problem.
We have such a small percentage of people that are even, for example, purchasing cryptocurrencies, and I would say purchasing cryptocurrencies is just the complete surface, scratching the absolute surface of getting into blockchain adoption, right? So actually actively participating or benefiting from the blockchain powered ecosystem is at a level that just such a small percentage have even reached yet, right? So that understanding, that societal understanding of the cost benefit analysis, I think is what we're lacking. So more evangelism, I guess, is one antidote, right?
Well, yeah, I think that goes along with education. Everything is basically education, but I think interoperability is a huge thing. But education about chain interoperability is kind of key, I think, in business, because when it comes to blockchain, there's a layman, but then there's also like the business world. I think as far as the business world goes, they think that so much of developing a blockchain means it's completely just that one little ecosystem and there's no interaction with other blockchains, which I think that area of education needs to be really addressed.
Right. And I would say the weird thing about that is that if it is such, because I do agree, buying crypto is just scratching the surface. Totally agree with that, and yet that's the only thing that's talked about. I mean, if you look at any of the forums, even if you look at, I would even say most of the cryptocurrency publications, they mostly deal with price action. That's pretty much it. Occasionally they'll throw something in if there's some good drama, somewhere. Usually it's nerd drama, but it's always religious. So I think the driver to that education. I mean, everybody has to be positioned well in terms of understanding how to explain their own tech. Because I know, like, say, Greg could explain his tech. James could explain what's going on behind the scenes of Beaxy and Bay and Orrin in his projects. That I think the the thing that will pull it is adoption. Actually having something being used by normal people who don't care that it's blockchain behind the scenes, right?
Unfortunately, I think the most powerful thing about a lot of blockchain-powered ecosystems is what's going on under the hood, right? And that refrain you hear a lot of times is that good technology is indistinguishable from magic. And so I think a lot of the users, whether it's an enterprise user or retail user, is like, well, for example, why should I switch to Ethereum network from what I'm doing on AWS right now, right? Like, I don't see a difference right now. And, a lot of that's going to come with, well, your own data ownership, your privacy rights, and those things that are eroding without your active participation, right?
And that's where I think the education should start, because a lot of people, and Joe, you and I see this a lot with Den.Social when we're having the weekly meetings, a lot of people don't understand why things take so long and they don't just magically work when it's not a centralized solution, right? It's a little bit more difficult to build in the same sort of easy to use way. And people don't understand that it is harder because it's not controlled by anyone. So even just the under the hood stuff, people don't get why it's special in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's another piece of it too, that a lot of the ways we talk about it as a community, we end up either talking about it assets, we talk about NFTs, we talk about NFTs as mostly art. We talk about currency, right? These tokens can be used for a lot more than that. And I think that when developers get the idea that they can create a lot more than just, things to trade financial assets with, or new assets that people can financialize, that's when things are going to get really interesting. Yeah, I think that's probably the key barrier.
Yeah, I will tell you, my thought at least, long term has been that as soon as people understand that no matter what it is they're doing or building, that they could do it better with blockchain, that you can affect human behavior. So that means whether you want to drive adoption or whether if you want to drive people to do the right thing, whatever that might be, follow your process the way that you want the system to work. You can passively do that. You can do things that make it simpler by just affecting the economy. So you end up bringing in people who grasp that if I do these things and I'm the best at that thing, I will be rewarded. And that means that whatever that thing is, and that's why the real work is defining what is it that you actually want. Then all of a sudden you can just make that happen, and it seems magical because you're not doing it; it's the users doing it. And we've seen it in Den. It's not perfect yet. There's some lack of efficiency in a couple of areas that we're constantly improving. But it's really interesting because even cases that someone might think, I don't know if that's right. It's like, well, the system thinks it's right, so it's right unless the whole community and the people who have governance want to come in and say, let's tighten that up, or let's adjust this to affect this behavior. That's where it's really interesting, and that's a normal system. It has, it's not a cryptocurrency, payments platform or something where we're talking about, how do we improve the ability to move money here or there, right? So, anyway,
yeah.
What do you think, Orrin?
Greater transparency from the government would also help, so that we can better illustrate how to define these products to the general public and the benefit, right? Like when people think cryptocurrency, they think blockchain, they think smart contract, but those are three separate things. And so we need people to understand that, to be able to understand the true value and benefit of this within society.
Yeah. And I think it's there's also if you had clear guidance from whichever agency wants to regulate this technology, it's fine if you were to say, hey, if you're a cryptocurrency, then we're going to regulate you, or if you're this, then we're going to regulate you. That would be much more beneficial, because then people would say, well, you know what, I don't want to be we're not a fintech solution. We are this. And I'd rather be regulated by engineers or engineer culture at which agency, the FCC or something, right? I don't know. That would be much more understandable to me and probably to the people I'd be working with on the regulatory side, if that were the case. But it isn't. It's all of the above, all in all places, and it's crazy when you're talking about, oh, you're a startup, but you have to maintain all of this stuff and all this legal knowledge that shouldn't be. And then there's all the other tribal stuff, which I think is somewhat related to that, but it's
Joe, I think you brought up something that no one really ever has, and that's because there's no regulatory framework. And I've said this year things are going to happen. 2021, this was it, and they're starting. But you can really start to see now how everyone is scared because nobody knows what the hell it is. And I think something that's a massive danger that I never really thought of until you just said what you said about where you want to be regulated and what ecosystem. I think there's a danger with the stupidity of our government, where everything's going to be put under one umbrella. Just because you have a token or something like that. If it is something that is completely going to be that should fall under the FCC, it's something that has no reason to be, involved with who does TV?
FCC. Well, it's David, theoretically the exchanges. The exchanges would be we're dealing on a capacity where people are trading and there's we deal with banks, all the rest of that. That makes total sense. But to a project that does decentralized storage,
what's crazy is the token is driving, even for a project that does, for example, decentralized storage, the token is driving the governance token or the utility token is driving insane regulatory battles for almost no reason, right? It's like these battles shouldn't have to be fought before we can decide whether the project is a viable solution for enterprise data storage, for example.
Right.
Well, look at Orrin. Orrin just released, his album. It's completely art. It's the music industry. It's a whole new area of the music industry, and it's not like Metallica's coming out with a new album. I hope the Satoshi lets them. It doesn't make any sense. That's what Joe's talking about. Everything's getting put under this one regulatory umbrella. Where it's not going to work.
Well, the funny thing is what will happen in that case is that they would declare in every genre. So Metallica and Megadeth would be clear. Those are obviously decentralized enough that we cannot regulate them. But everyone else, so Testament gets regulated. That's a metalhead joke for you guys. And then that's the situation we're in now because for absolutely no reason.
Metallica could not regulate itself. That's why Megadeth was born.
I don't want to comment on that.
But that's accurate, though, right? That's kind of how it is. You have a situation where if you're old enough and big enough, then you can do stuff. That's okay. But if you're trying to innovate and you're smaller and you're supposed to be on an even playing field, right? But we're not, right? You don't have the resources to compete like with Google or IBM or even Bitcoin, because it's like, I think this is what you were alluding to. Bitcoin's been around long enough to where that'll be okay. Ethereum's been around long enough to where we're not going to mess with Ethereum. But anybody new who tries to do something, screw you guys.
That's just lobbyists.
Just wait till somebody comes out with a decentralized, autonomous political action committee that can make lobbying contributions. You will watch an
interesting concept.
Then the Federal Election Commission gets involved, and now
because really it's about the level of decentralization, right? I mean, it's about whether or not they can get hooks in you to prosecute you, right? And if it's sufficiently decentralized, then on one hand, hard to be prosecuted or shut down, but on the other hand, very difficult to push forward adoption with enterprise when you don't really have a team in the United States, for example, because you're so decentralized and you're so ghost.
It's it's going to be. You're going to end up with hybrid because you're going to end up with groups, and we're already seeing some of it with people that we talk to that they're going to have something that is as decentralized as possible and potentially domiciled however, if they think makes sense, along with a traditional organization that's on the side that, does the things that you have to do to, in the real world. And, they'll be separated somehow legally. It depends on, at what point somebody breaks ranks in the legal world and says, oh, here's the standard, let's just do this and make it open and everybody can do it instead of charging everybody $1 million. Right. So
when you get this weird thing too, where you've got lobbyists on one side and regulators on the other, the two groups primarily threatened by blockchain, or at least willing to take action and spend either taxpayer money or lobbying dollars on it. And then there are the legislators who are basically learning about it from them, right? The regulators are telling them about how they should regulate it, and the lobbyists are telling them how they should legislate on it. And those two groups, unless there's a blockchain lobby or some specific crypto decentralization federal agency, which would be kind of preposterous, they're going to be putting pressure on them to fight back against it, even though if they're listening to their constituents and paying attention to what's good for people, then it should be them pushing for it, and instead we're getting them kind of sandwiched between people who want to stop it. Which,
I guess bizarro education is kind of an issue too, right? Like malicious education, even, or we talk about lobbying and where they actually learn from, like who they learn the technology from. I hadn't thought about that much, but there's a lot of that going around too.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna break. We're gonna come back with the next question right after this.
The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now there are many. Because soon there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
All right, from Rivet. Good stuff. Good stuff. Is Greg not on anymore?
I'm here.
Okay. Oh, geez. I'm like looking. Yeah. Sorry, my screen is like all blocked. I need to get another screen on here. Okay. Next up, from Angel Breaker. What are the best metrics and factors to describe the success and adoption of a blockchain? So, and I don't know if that means future. This is not going to be financial advice for anyone. So, one way or another, who wants to answer this first? I have a lot to say about this, obviously. Anyone?
I will say market cap can only tell you so much. Like, there are good data points there, because for sure the free market is a powerful force and it's an efficient allocator of value in some cases, many cases. But there's the limits to that that insight that it can give you. And I think for Bitcoin's a really good, Bitcoin and Ethereum are good examples, because much of the crypto ecosystem and most of the worldwide projects, by and large, that you're seeing are being built on the Ethereum ecosystem, even though Bitcoin has a much larger market capitalization. There's more utility potentially in some of these other projects than there is in some of the larger caps like Bitcoin. But you don't quite see that. And obviously you get things like hype, and you get things like, fever of the moment and that sort of thing that build into market cap. But for sure, where people are willing to put their money is relevant.
I think when it comes to successful blockchain, I would say active customers, not just customers, but active users, and then transactions, to prove that the customers are actually using it. Because you could have a blockchain app or something, and there's a ton of people that signed up are technically customers of that project, but they're, from 2 years ago, or they're just fake. And then with transactions, it's kind of, you can manipulate that in other ways too, but I think both of them together, if they kind of jive, then that's a good metric.
I'd be inclined to say GitHub commits related to the project. Like the more developers working on a thing, sort of like monkeys and Shakespeare, right? You get enough people making great ideas, and then like a really astounding idea is going to emerge.
Yeah, but then you could look at Litecoin, who didn't have anything in their GitHub for almost a year, and they're one of the most successful blockchains, and cryptocurrencies out there. So
it's not a singular measure. Like there's no singular measure, I would say.
Or private GitHubs exist too, to where you cannot see what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, it's definitely not a perfect measure.
I would say it's just first of all, any metrics you can get, real stuff, not press releases. I mean, I think that's those are the ones that end up being the probably have the most effect for how little substance there is most often, because there's so much hype that I'm sure no one would be surprised, but you get a tremendous number of requests for partnership when you're in this industry, and majority of time it's not maybe what I would consider real. There might be some intent to do something, but just to make a press release is not the thing that should matter. I guess one thing would be beyond metrics, the willingness or at least even apparent drive to provide transparent metrics, because that's the thing that at least we try to do in our project Dragonchain is I would love to have everything up there, and frankly it's just priorities on should we build this or should we add this to the metrics page, and it's like I want to brag about all those metrics, and yet when we've tried to do matrices when a customer asks for what about this or what about that, it's hard to get data. We're usually resorting to Reddit replies and then trying to gauge, is this person really from that project, and if they give any source at all, can I look at these numbers to see when they pulled off whatever feat they did, which a lot of times I believe is honest, but I'm like, well, why isn't this from an official source? Why do I have to see this in a Reddit comment where I don't even know if it's real? Because it could be a community member saying, hey, I'm going to say this because I love this project or whatever. It's kind of rough, and the market cap stuff blows my mind. It's a function. I think it's a function of but I think it's not working, because if you look at we could talk about several others. You could talk about Doge before Elon came into the picture. The market cap doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense then, and to say, okay, it makes sense now. I say, okay, if you factor in some type of hype or name recognition, maybe the change makes sense. But
if you're looking to filter through the noise, market cap is not your go-to, right? Like, which one, if you had to drill down, that filters out most of the noise and shows you the real proof in the pudding, if whether a project's good. I mean, with software, it's daily active users, right? And I don't think that necessarily changes when it comes to blockchain. Daily active users, daily active uses, maybe. For certain projects, I'm not sure.
Uses is better than users because it's more objective, right? I mean, it's like exactly. You look at the way that Twitter, I think, if I remember right, admittedly had created their own bots. I know at Reddit, they've admitted that they didn't have enough activity, so they created bots. And so bots were making tons of at least the replies, so they could probably brag to in prospects in the VC world. It's like, our daily active user rate is exponential, like they all want to see in Northern California, and yet they're all bots. I know that Twitter had bots because we were doing integrations with Twitter way back, and there would be DJs in Siberia that were responding to our pushes. It was really weird. It's like, I know this guy's not at Siberia, right?
Unfortunately, fake it till you make it's a big thing in Silicon Valley. Yeah. Right?
And so if you can, and that's one beautiful thing about like Ethereum does 1.5 around transactions a day, and mostly those are all real transactions, right? I mean, it'd be hard and expensive to fake much of that, right? So that's usually a pretty cool thing. Anyway,
another metric is what steps is that blockchain taking to foster innovation on their blockchain? Like, do they have hackathons? Do they have some sort of incubators or fundraisers so that people are incentivized to build here?
That's good. And the tradition of the team, because that's part of the, what's the team's vision? What are they doing to get to that vision? Is it real? That's a big part of it.
Which some of that can come out in the in marketing materials, and some of that can come out in a good white paper. But like you said before, like those last four things, essentially, like way too much hype. I mean, the standard has really just become a lot of hype involved in press releases and white papers and all those things. So it's really difficult to believe that. But I think it is possible to bring more transparency and more communication to that process, so that you're releasing marketing materials that are actually talking about innovations that you're pushing within your project. And you can cut some of the BS out.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much of it, I feel like, has to do with, all the proxy measures we've used in old economies that were driven on gathering mass amounts of consumer data. Like, that's not what we're trying to do. So, there might be a good way to nail down some really precise things that we could analyze with algorithms up and down. But then we would be betraying the values that got us into this to begin with. And really what it comes down to is subjective experience of the people who are benefiting from it, and the depth of their willingness to share detailed explorations of why they like it or why they don't. It's a metric unfriendly space, but ultimately that's kind of what we were after. So
yeah, I kind of agree with you there too, Greg. And I'm a hobby miner, and I like to get involved with new projects. So I've actually got a lot of experience fishing through stuff to see if maybe there's something worth getting involved with in the first place. Not even like speculative wise. I don't trade much, but I do sometimes invest in a new project to mine or to help run a node on. And so the questions that I'm always asking are like, why do you exist? Are you doing something different than what you forked off of? And then, like, as far as, I forget who was talking about, this was a regulation thing that was brought up, but the token being scary to regulators and stuff because there's money attached to it. And a lot of these, the token and the fact that it is valuable is required for the engine to work. Like, it's a part of the moving machine, And so I'll run a node. I'll hop on and I'll invest enough to get whatever collateral is required to run nodes on the network. I'll hop in and learn about what the team's trying to do, why they're trying to do it, what their motivation is. Does the CEO have a family and a house and bills to pay? That's a good sign. You know what I mean? Like, do they need this for themselves? And are they addressing a problem that anybody really is looking to solve right now? So that's some of my stuff that's subjective. It's time consuming. Spend 3 months on this network and see how decentralized it is. See how the distribution is across holders, right? How fair is the distribution of the token, which is very difficult, especially for a lot of the proof of stake coins and stuff to come out. It's very difficult to design something that distributes fairly, where there's not just a couple of bag holders. Does it have 10 trillion tokens? Stuff like that. Just to get an idea of, sometimes, like, I have a token that I hold just in case, because I've seen some weird shit happen, and there's a 10 trillion supply of them, right? I've got my own reasons, and I don't have very many, but it's a very subjective thing for you to have a reason to get involved, besides maybe this will make me rich.
Yeah.
All the questions are way more important.
I will tell you one thing on the fundamentals. It usually requires patience, though, because the hardest part about fundamentals and when things are really needed, and especially when they're really adopted, they might be needed well before they're adopted, but it's time, and you have no idea. It's like, look, I know this is needed in the world. That's clear indication that there might be some value there. If you can see that the execution team is good, the vision around how they're going to attack that problem, those are the big things. And then you just better be ready to wait, because if you aren't ready to wait, you're gonna kick yourself later, because when it actually hits, you're like, I knew it was gonna hit and I got out of it, right? That's the thing. So but that's a technology thing, right? It's just, this is the first time that people, I think, like us, I don't know all of your backgrounds, right? But I think this is the first time in history that people like us have been able to work at that level, because I could have predicted Google's rise, right? I could have predicted, I mean, you think about this. It's like, it was a pretty obvious thing from when they first started releasing any of their early stuff and their research. It's like, well, yeah, I would put guess what? You can't, Joe. You're not rich enough to put money in this. You don't know the right people to put money in this. That's why this is so huge, because frankly,
a really good point.
Everybody's your own venture capitalist.
Yeah, they can bet on software. It's crazy.
Sure. It's the true democratizer of finance, right? I mean, it was super funny that Robinhood tried to come out and say that they were democratizing finance, that whole debacle. But I think what people really found out is that the only true democratizer of finance is something that's permissionless, something that, is completely blind to who's participating.
An intermediary should be allowed to shut it down now. Just runs it.
Yeah, you can't buy any more of that. That's hilarious. Okay, so let's take another break and come back right after this with the next question.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best. Adaptable, all capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is foul, but that conclusion is laughable. So if we're all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.
All right, and that was by Y'all Weird, by the way, on Den. I need to give him more credit for that. He put that's original piece for that. So, and Tenacious Dragon doing the editing. So anyway, next question by Brindlebeard is a topic: the different ways to mine depending on access to equipment. That is, or for example, proof of work versus time versus staking. And what are the benefits of each depending upon various situations and applications of each? And I guess maybe he or she is specifically asking about, there are cases like in Venezuela where people were mining Bitcoin, but they have to worry about power consumption because it shows up. And then they go get raided and all their Bitcoin stolen and all their equipment stolen. And now whoever it is that does the raiding basically has an operation set up to mine Bitcoin. They probably hire the same people if they do the work. They don't go to prison or something. Who knows? That's all totally out of nowhere. I did not. No one told me that story, but that's my assumption. So what do you guys think? And Dave does a lot of mining. I did mining in 2010, 2011, right? So I haven't touched anything since then, but I've always wanted to. So
yeah, I've been mining stuff since about 2014. As I remember, I was checking out this new dark coin fork that became Dash later on. Okay. And so yeah, mining's interesting because I have been in a bunch of different, and also I moved around a lot. And so depending on the price of electricity and depending on the space that you're in, like I was doing that in a single bedroom apartment in Crystal City when I was living like downtown next to the Pentagon in DC. I couldn't really scale up when I was doing that, right? It was thoroughly a hobby, but I made some money
right next to the Pentagon.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. There was our apartment, and then there was like a soccer field and the train tracks and the airport, and then the Pentagon. So my dog, I used to walk the dog around there all the time. But yeah, so I've done that, and that showed me that was my, I forget my point there, but that was 2014. And now, man, I really want to do the proof of work stuff. I really want to, but it just makes sense to me personally. I've transitioned into running nodes mostly for service nodes. For there's a project that Oxen used to be Loki, right? Forked off of Monero, and now they're working on, and this is, I guess, the ultimate point of it with the question here. They're working on a couple of things like Tor, an onion router network, high bandwidth that we could do these sort of video conferences on, because obviously you can't do that over Tor, and it works pretty well. The bandwidth is great, and what they do is they run basically a Tor relay or exit node or however you set it up, except they're using cryptocurrency to monetize those nodes, so that you're giving people a reason to be a good actor and not a bad node. You're giving the network some incentive to be better other than pure do good, right? So that's cool. I'm running one of those nodes. It pays out. It doesn't take a bunch of electricity. I run it on a VPN, right? Because it would violate my my end user license agreement with Cox, I think. So it's on a VPN. I run some DragonNet nodes. Those I run at home. Doesn't take up a bunch of power. Does leverage Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? So I'm validating stuff that does end up hardened on the Bitcoin network, but I'm not mining Bitcoin. Now, if I make it rich on one of my hobby projects, I probably will buy a property in a warehouse and scale up and do some proof of work mining. It's just, to me, it's ease of getting into it. How hard is it to get into something? And when I go back to what I was talking about as far as experimenting with different networks and seeing if it's worth getting into, to me, the price of entry, like, if I'm prohibited from getting involved because it's so expensive to get involved, then it's difficult for me to do, like, I'm not going to go out and buy a bunch of overpriced GPUs on eBay that are at a shortage to mine something to see if it's worth it, right?
Probably can't find them.
Oh, you can find them.
I think that's a huge good point you made there. Is the entry level, and that's one thing that's changed so much in the space. I used to mine until I set this room on fire, so I stopped and haven't mined since then. But I used to be a big proponent of it, even if because you could make a couple bucks, and you would go on eBay, you could get a little tiny one of those little round Bitcoin miners for like $100, $200, and you could mine it with like hardly any power. You wouldn't make that much, but you would make something, and you would understand how it works. And it's so much more when a regular person first goes down the rabbit hole, you understand how that works. When a regular person mines and understands how it works, it's like a whole nother rabbit hole. Then all of a sudden they're a miner, and it's like, they're part of the huge, mining community, and they're making like, $18, $25 a month in Bitcoin.
And they're learning a ton.
Slowly went down. Then I have probably 50 of those miners just in a box in the shed. But because now the entry level it's huge, and there was a transition time when people were just like, hey, it's cheaper to just buy Bitcoin here and hold it rather than mine it. You could spend $3,000 on just one ASIC and then mine for 6 months, or you could have bought $3,000 worth 6 months ago and you would be ahead. So there was this whole kind of push, and it was all about number go up. It really was. And the disincentive for people to be part of the network and to learn how to mine, to where now the entry level is just, you literally need to look at owning a warehouse and a plot of land. And it's not what Satoshi wanted. It's not a completely distributed, not just peer-to-peer cash, but like anyone could be part of the network and mine it. It wasn't just the money; it was also the acquisition of it. If you look back, years and years and years, it's literally like everyone had a gold mine in their backyard and could just go mine and then use gold as money. That was a big part of crypto that's been lost because of the entry point. So it's a little sad, but I mean, still, proof of work is so much more secure and so much better. And I wanted to have this graphic that I had seen this week. It compared Bitcoin and the energy consumption to literally what banks used to run, what the Pentagon uses to run, the dollar itself. And usually people use the argument of, feelings and, wars and people killed. But this was hard numbers. And Bitcoin's usage was just infinitesimal compared. I mean, literally, like, it was like Bank of America and Chase, like two banks used like more power.
Yeah.
And I think that that's coming back around, though. So I've learned so much about Bitcoin just by mining other projects, just learning why it's different, what they do different than the previous idea. And it's true that Bitcoin proof of work mining sort of got priced out by ASICs and stuff, but I like the Lightning Network and what's going on there, and I see myself running a Lightning node as a node runner, as a way to support Bitcoin, right? So there's different ways to support projects depending on what your angle is, and a lot of people that I've talked to who ask me questions about mining seem like they just want to be involved. They want to be on the network validating transactions. They want to be a part of the consensus. They want to be part of this movement, and the money's great, but that's usually the two things: is can I use this to print money, and can I use this to help out?
It is a good side. It almost answers or it provides another angle to the last question too. Is what are the miners doing? Are the miners joining the network? It is a metric. How many people are running nodes? If you can get metrics on, how clustered is that? Is it one person with a warehouse, owning 80% of the nodes, that type of thing. So there's some really interesting pieces there that you can use across the whole thing. But it is neat because I know when I first started looking at Bitcoin, I was I really looked a lot into the mining side of it, and I almost felt dirty going and buying Bitcoin at Mt. Gox, right? But it's like I wanted more than I could possibly mine even at that time, and so it's kind of like, well, okay, we can do this. There was a point in time too when, if I remember right, that you could, I think it was Ethereum, I'm pretty sure, that you could actually make a profit spinning up. It might have been Bitcoin mining with GPUs. I can't remember, but you could spin up a particular cloud's environment, their GPU systems, and you could actually profit. And it's like, okay, it's great, we can do this. We don't have time to do it anyway, so don't worry.
And stuff like that, right. You can do that for a minute.
Yeah.
There's a period of time where, this is extremely profitable.
It was like a week or two.
When you're making $500 a day on Ethereum because they're charging $1,000 fees, and that's going to the miners. Yeah. That happens, but there's a few months, and then that's a period of history that doesn't happen.
Well, and it's all a competition, and that's, by the way, why we have our fifth level of consensus. That is where Bitcoin and Ethereum Classic and whatever else we have in there at the time in a pool, because frankly, I know technology and I know stuff breaks, and I know sometimes stuff is broken before you know it. And if ever one of those chains falls over on itself, we have to have other chains that we're providing proof to. That it's literally a competition of algorithms, and it plays out on adoption and mining for use and utility, but it also plays out in the pricing as well, right? So if people got that and stopped doing the maximalist thing, because literally nobody knows that Bitcoin is going to win. It has the best, and by the way, what to win, it's like I think it's already won. I think the fact that all of these projects exist outside of Bitcoin is a clear indication that what Satoshi brought, it was real, right?
I think it has won, and that's why there's a podcast called "What Bitcoin Did" and not "What Bitcoin is Trying to Do." Hopefully,
right?
That kind of thing.
But I'm not sure it's a winner take all sort of thing, right? I mean, I think it's just everything finding its place in the new Web 3.0, the future economy, right? So I mean, it's sort of trite and commonplace at this point that Bitcoin is digital gold, but if Bitcoin has won, it's won as a reserve asset, as a gold of sorts, right? And that leaves a whole host of other functions to be taken over by something else.
Oh yeah, like the spreadsheet was invented for what? Like, people had graph paper, but they put it on an Apple II, and that made Apple II #1 for a while, but the basic function of this program has been iterated on and expanded, right? Like version 1 of this idea, and now people get to riff on it. And that's, obviously with Bitcoin, there's a unique case where this original implementation of this simple version of it is going to have a key place in the future, no matter what. But in a way that like running the spreadsheets on an Apple II won't. But there's still going to be this aspect of iteration, right? And then just a real quick comment on the mining. I think people should always remember that's a reward, right? You're getting a block reward. You're not mining to get the reward. You're mining to secure the network. So if you're good at that, use that skill and get a reward. But if you're not, then it's probably best to just buy it if you don't want to learn how to first be an expert at running intensive computing equipment.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do one more break and come back with the last short question. Okay.
Now, more than ever, our data is at risk. Our supply chains are in jeopardy. Our systems are broken, and businesses feel powerless. Dragonchain gives you a different way, a safer way, a better way, and you have power over your data. Dragonchain gives you proof in an untrusted world. Build now at dragonchain.com, America's blockchain.
All right, so we probably don't have as much time as we may need, but the next topic from Juan Esperanza is, with all the talk on regulations upcoming, what would be something that would satisfy regulators but also empower industry? So who'd want to answer that quick?
I want to say something on this. I'm in Texas, and I don't know if you've been following what's going on here, but I think we're about to start a civil war. The governor has, you have DeSantis in Florida. It's very loud, very, very loud. And but then you have our governor, who is he's actually signing bills and giving the finger to the government. He signed a resolution that told the government, we're Texas, fuck off. We're not going to break the Constitution. We're not going to do anything that you tell us to do that goes against the Constitution. You have no power here when it comes to anything that you're not supposed to be regulating or supposed to be having jurisdiction over with the Constitution. If you ask one thing of us that has anywhere outside of your purview with the Constitution, we will not comply with you. Fuck off. It's very, very strong. He then came out and said, we're going to build the wall ourselves and secure the border for Texas. Screw the federal government once again. We don't need you. We're Texas. We're not a charity state. We give more to the federal government than we get. So he's basically reasserting the states' rights. Now then, what I think was really weird, and it's making me feel strange, is that DeSantis in Florida are now sending troops to Texas to support. It's police, but it's this uniting of the southern states against the federal government is very, very odd. But the governor also came out with what I thought was revolutionary. It's like the blockchain cryptocurrency bill, which says that Texas is going to focus on being one of the leading innovators in the field. So I think that the government was moving so slow and is so scared to do anything that I think other countries are moving ahead. Other countries are doing so much more when it comes to this. And now I think states are going to start moving and kind of picking up the gauntlet themselves.
Hopefully they don't just do banking though, right? I mean, that's because that stuff is all about banking still, right? It's like,
the part of the resolution is that all Texas chartered banks can now offer Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies purchasing and custody. Which, oh my God, can you imagine if the SEC said that was cool, or the federal bank
didn't
said that was
the federal government already say that, like at the end of last year? When Brian Brooks went in as comptroller, didn't that go out with the banks in custody now?
I don't think so.
That was no. Okay.
Stable coins.
Maybe on the table, but that may be when
when
what's his name came up with the bill to ban crypto, which is just it's so ridiculous because it's not like it's hard to. What's that guy? He's from California, but literally his top three contributors are foreign banks and payment processors.
Wow.
It's like a Chinese bank, 2 Swiss banks, and some huge European payment processor. And he came out and just was like, cryptocurrency is the worst.
Do you guys?
I know.
You guys remember around? I think it was 2011, 2012. I'd have to look it up, but when Schumer and Manchin came out, they're both banking committee, and they were going to ban Bitcoin, right? And this was before alts. Litecoin was there, I believe. I know Namecoin was there, right? And I was a big Bitcoin person at the time. That's I was telling everybody about it, and we were at this dinner, and Manchin was walking around, shaking people's hands and stuff, and as I was shaking his hand, it's like, I need to talk to you about Bitcoin, right? And it was funny because he froze, and politicians are they're really good at what they do, but he froze and looked up and pointed across the room. And some dude comes over and says, "Oh, we'll set up a call with you," or whatever. It was interesting, right? But my whole point then was, you guys are looking at this like it's, and I know it's because whoever's funding your campaigns, right? That and they're both banking committee members and everything else. But it was a really odd thing because they, that was one of the first indicators, or at least led into me thinking, okay, this is why Bitcoin is. Now store of value. It isn't because this is the best engineering decision or anything else. It is literally the forces that be, and this was the convenient place when you can't kill something. You promote it. so one way or another, it was really weird because my whole point was, look, this can open up markets. This technology can open up markets to businesses in your the place that you represent, right? So. It was a really weird thing, but that's how all that stuff works. So, I think we already even talked about this. I don't know how it worked in, but clear regulations to follow, reasonable and clear. But clear is probably, even if they're unreasonable, if they're at least clear, you can follow them and know. Okay, well, I don't want to start my business here if that's the case. But when they're unclear, it's really, I will tell you, very hard and very expensive, both in, beyond money, but also blood and sweat to counter when you don't know, what the clear path is,
Right. I think regulators want two things, right? Bigger budget and job security, right? So they're going to always want more money. And they're always going to want more staffing, right? They're going to want a bigger chunk of the budgetary pie because the way government's budget's different from the way private enterprises do and people do. They allocate money based on the last budget cycle spent. If you don't use it, you lose it. So the incentive is always there to identify leaks in your solution and regulate more and more and more. So it's a solution that does not ratchet down, right? They won't be satisfied is the key. The question is the mechanism by which they're expanding it something that's open to any kind of transparency? And I think that's why we want clear regulation.
I don't think say regulators wanted, for example.
Anything else you could say about government that talks about how broken it is, better than what you just said? That's literally their model for, I don't even know how 100 years that I could say, and it's it's the worst. It promotes waste. It promotes, I mean, I've been connected with it. Joe's been connected with it. Coming towards the end of the year, they just blow money like crazy. Anything. I mean, they'll do anything they can to spend that money so that they don't lose it. There's absolutely no incentive to save money.
Well, and the sad part is these are good people that care a lot, right? Like they're not trying to make the world a worse place. They're not twirly mustaches and black hats on. They're not tying people to railroad tracks. They're trying to help, and their system for helping is just, it's a ratchet.
But I also think there's a lot of fear of what can't be controlled, right? And the issue comes to mind of the KYC on all personally hosted wallets, which was something that regulators wanted, but eventually, sort of through the extended comment period, sort of got shuttered for later discussion. I think that was by and large a huge victory, right? And part of that's a new administration in the U.S. coming in, but regulators are always going to want more tools to go after what they perceive as threats everywhere, right? So how do you come to a good balance there? Because for sure, any project that gets sufficiently large is going to also be paired with risks, from money laundering to anything else, and there is going to have to be some degree of regulation.
But when you look at regulation and getting back to what Greg said about education, the lack of education in the government is, and it's not just the top. Like I was reading the story just the other day. There was the IRS or the DEA or some law enforcement agency. No, Scotland Yard.
Well,
I remember Scotland Yard went to the government and said, "Hey, we need these powers. You give us these powers." And the list was insane. It was like to be able to go into people's wallets and look, take money out, freeze transfers on the blockchain. I mean, all these things that could never happen. And they had no idea. This was like a formal request for
by the way, that's the reason that maximalism is bad, because that is our key and only way to educate is the people that are up there on stage that just in this case happened to be acting like clowns last week, right? So anyway, that's the issue with that. We're gonna cut. Does anybody have anything to announce this week? Anything in your projects going on that everybody should know about?
We just made a new law layer. Other than that,
law.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of, yes. Okay,
maybe
Greg.
we can hop in the law layer once it goes up and continue this conversation.
Yes, very much.
I'd like to say is the thing I usually say, right? Is if you don't see it out there and nobody's built it yet, go build it. That's what you ought to do. If you want to check out Rivet, we can help. If you want to build on something else, cool, but do it. Don't just let that idea sit there. That's standard can thing for me. Cool.
Any other plugs?
If you're looking to get into bot trading, you can run a Hummingbot Green Connector on Beaxy Exchange for free. And the Hummingbot team's gone to great lengths to make sure everything runs squeaky clean. They've got some new strategies and stuff, so stop by and check it out.
Can I turn that on with the fiat account that I just got as well on Beaxy?
Absolutely.
Oh, cool. All right, I'll try that pairing out.
Amazing. That's awesome. Okay, I have something. We just put out the let's see here, the energy and sustainability report. A lot of effort went into that. So if you read it, feel free to give us feedback. We really dived into how much it costs to run our network as close as we can, since we don't run all the nodes, but we know the footprint, and there's some pretty crazy numbers. It's only 0.02 of a watt per transaction, and our network utilization right now is really low, that we can process a radical number of more transactions. It looks like we could do 54.8 billion transactions, and that's there are some assumptions that that's theoretical, but that's based upon real world numbers from when we ran 260 million transactions in a day. So our capacity at that point was 2%, I think, and there were a quarter the number of nodes at the time. So really interesting stuff. And whether you're looking at it solely from sustainability, environmentalism context, or if you're looking at it just for literal efficiency and scalability in a network, I think is extremely interesting. And I will say it was hard to find metrics on many other chains. Again, in this case, we had to resort to Reddit and everything else. We didn't end up publishing any comparisons. We didn't put them all together, at least, especially at this level, but we just wanted to get a handle on, where do we stand? Is this notable? Is it, should we be bragging about this? And with all of what's going on in the world, is topical, right? Because, I actually think a lot is being made of Bitcoin's power consumption that are probably not well placed. So anyway, that energy is what we measure for value and security. So it's a very important thing that we can measure something. Now, if it's proof of stake, when Ethereum goes proof of stake, we will still have a measure. We'll have network size, and we'll have also how much Ethereum was staked in a given signing of a block. So we would still be able to price it out and put a dollar figure on it. But anyway, it's very interesting stuff. So that's it for this week. So thanks everybody for coming on. This is actually getting smoother and smoother. So bear with us. It's only the 4th episode. It was still timings are working out pretty well, and everybody is super nice. So it's we don't have to worry about too much drama or anything, hopefully. So come back every Thursday. It's going to be the same time every Thursday. But most important, whether you watch it live or not, do join the cryptocurrency layer in Den so that you can ask questions, give us ideas for good topics, and very importantly, to help us by voting on those questions and topics, so that we can choose the questions. And by the way, I think we said this week that every question that was chosen is getting a single lot from the cryptocurrency layer. So there'll be some interesting stuff coming out about how we're going to shift that model over time with the roundtable. So anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, guys. That was awesome.